Imagine driving on a dark road late at night, and out of nowhere a woman appears. This is not just any woman. Her eyes are black and her smile sends chills down your spine. This was the reality for a jeepney driver named Daniel in Benguet, Philippines, in 1994. Daniel, a hardworking jeepney driver, had just finished ferrying a group of students for a field trip. It had been a long day, but the night was still young. He was on his way home, pockets heavy with the day's earnings, when the unexpected happened. It was around 10 in the evening. The road was quiet and the air was filled with the sound of the jeepney's engine. Suddenly, a woman crossed the road, appearing out of nowhere. Daniel slammed on the brakes, the jeepney screeching to a halt just inches away from her. Heart pounding, Daniel jumped out of the vehicle to check on the woman, but when he looked at her, he felt a cold chill run down his spine. Her eyes were a deep, inky black that seemed to swallow all light. Her smile was eerie, a chilling contrast to her haunting eyes. She looked at Daniel and said, "I'm fine." The words echoed in Daniel's mind, but they brought no comfort. Instead, they amplified his terror. He could feel his heart pounding against his ribs, his palms sweaty against the steering wheel. He jumped back into the jeepney and drove off as fast as he could, leaving the strange woman standing alone in the darkness. As he sped away, he could still see her in his rearview mirror, standing in the middle of the road, her black eyes reflecting the jeepney's taillights. The image of her eerie smile was burnt into his mind, a chilling reminder of the terrifying encounter. Shaken to his core, Daniel sped away, leaving the mysterious woman behind, but the memory of her chilling smile would stay with him forever. Imagine you're taking a break from a long drive, and then you see lights in the distance. As they approach, you realize these aren't ordinary lights. This was the experience of a truck driver named Antonio in Argentina in 1998. Antonio was on his usual route, bound for Buenos Aires. It had been a long day on the road, and he decided to pull over for a rest. As he sipped his coffee and enjoyed a cigarette under the starlit sky, something caught his attention. Lights were approaching in the distance. At first, he thought it might be a helicopter, but as they grew closer, he realized that this was something entirely different. The lights belonged to an object in the sky, a gigantic, silent entity. It was so vast that Antonio estimated it to be the size of not one, not two, but 3 Boeing 747 jumbo jets. Yet, the enormity of the object was not the only thing that astounded Antonio. The silence that accompanied it was eerie, almost otherworldly. There was no roaring engine, no whooshing of air, just a quiet humming that barely stirred the night. The object drifted closer, its multiple lights twinkling like Christmas decorations. Despite its gargantuan size, it moved with an almost graceful ease. It was as though it was gliding above the earth, completely at peace, and yet completely out of place. Its altitude was hard to discern, but Antonio guessed it to be somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 feet. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, it was gone. The object pulled up, soaring into the night sky, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Antonio was left standing there, coffee cup in hand, the burning end of his cigarette, the only evidence of the time that had passed. As the gigantic object disappeared into the night, Antonio was left in awe, his coffee forgotten and his cigarette burned out. He was left with a story that would be hard to believe, a story of a UFO sighting on a remote highway in Argentina. But for Antonio, it was a night he would never forget, a night where he came face to face with the inexplicable mysteries of our world. Have you ever seen a woman so beautiful she seems otherworldly? This was the case for a man named Alexander in Bulgaria. Alexander was driving along a remote road when nature called. He decided to take a quick stop to answer this call in the nearby forest. However, fate had a different plan. As he was returning to his car, Alexander slipped and fell, knocking himself unconscious. When he woke up, he found his head resting on the lap of a woman. But she was no ordinary woman. Alexander was taken aback by her ethereal beauty. She was draped in a dress made of flowers and leaves. Her eyes were a captivating, light forest green, and her naturally black hair was adorned with blossoms. Alexander couldn't help but stare, entranced by this enchanting vision before him. Helping Alexander to his feet, The woman led him back to his car. The way she moved was as graceful as a dance, each step seeming to be in harmony with the rhythm of the forest. Alexander was mesmerized. He didn't know who she was or where she came from, but he felt an inexplicable connection to her. Before he could ask any questions, the woman leaned in, planting a gentle kiss on his cheek. It was a kiss that felt like a warm summer's breeze, leaving Alexander in a state of blissful confusion. She then whispered in his ear, her voice as soft as the rustle of leaves. "Go home, my precious. I am always watching you since your birth." As Alexander drove away, he couldn't shake off the image of the enchanting woman. He glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see her standing there, but she had vanished as mysteriously as she had appeared. The only evidence of the encounter was the lingering scent of wildflowers in his car and a sense of peace in his heart. Her words echoed in his mind. "I am always watching you since your birth." And so, Alexander's encounter with the fairy of the Bulgarian forests ended, but the memory of it would stay with him forever. Picture this. You're driving on a quiet road when suddenly, you hit something. You step out of your vehicle, only to come face to face with a creature unlike anything you've ever seen. This was the harrowing experience of a truck driver named Scott in Missouri, United States. As Scott was making his way to Kansas City, he found himself driving along a deserted stretch of road. Suddenly, he felt a thud, as if his truck had collided with something. Fearing he had hit a person, Scott immediately brought his truck to a halt and stepped out. What he saw next was beyond his wildest nightmares. There, illuminated by the harsh glow of his headlights, was a creature that defied all logic and reason. This being was a towering 7 feet tall, with abnormally thin limbs ending in long fingers tipped with sharp claws. Its head was round and dominated by large black eyes that stared back at him with an unnerving intensity. Its mouth was filled with sharp teeth that glistened in the dim light. Before Scott could fully process what he was seeing, the quiet of the night was shattered by the arrival of an unexpected entity. A highway patrol car pulled up, and a uniformed officer stepped out. As he radioed for backup, the night sky was filled with the sound of rotors. 3 Black Hawk helicopters swooped down, landing nearby. From one of the helicopters, 2 men dressed in black emerged. They cordoned off the area, and with a practiced efficiency, they collected the creature. Scott was taken aback as they approached him next. He was whisked away to a secret location, where he was debriefed about the incident. The men in black offered him a deal. A large sum of money, enough to buy his own truck and a house, in exchange for his silence. Bought into silence by a large sum of money, Scott was left with an experience that would haunt him for the rest of his life. From terrifying encounters to strange sightings, these stories leave us with more questions than answers. Let's revisit these tales, each cloaked in its own unique aura of mystery. In the Philippines, we met Daniel, a jeepney driver who had a chilling encounter with a woman with pitch-black eyes. Was this woman a creature of the night, a figment of his imagination, or perhaps a manifestation of his deepest fears? The answer remains shrouded in uncertainty. We then journeyed to the remote highways of Argentina, where Antonio, a truck driver, spotted what he believed to be a gargantuan UFO. The object, seemingly as large as 3 Boeing 747s and adorned with an array of lights, soared silently through the night sky before vanishing in the blink of an eye. Was this a mere optical illusion, advanced technology, or evidence of extraterrestrial life? The question lingers, unanswered. In Bulgaria, Alexander's brush with the supernatural introduced us to a woman of ethereal beauty, adorned with flowers and leaves. Was she a guardian spirit, a fairy, or just a dream that seemed too real? The mystery only deepens with this tale. Finally, in Missouri, United States, we heard the tale of Scott, a truck driver who collided with a terrifying creature. His encounter took a turn for the bizarre when men in black arrived, cordoned off the area, and whisked both him and the creature away. Was this creature a cryptid, an escaped experiment, or something even more sinister? The enigma persists. Each of these stories, from different corners of the world, presents us with a unique conundrum. They challenge our understanding of reality, pushing the boundaries of what we consider possible. They remind us that the world we live in is far more mysterious and unexplainable than we often care to admit. While we may never know the truth behind these encounters, one thing is certain: our world is full of mysteries that defy explanation,